Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of meetings of the Township Council established and adopted by the Township Council, the schedule designated time, date, and place. The time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Where I use electronic amplifier recording device in order to obtain audible and clear record, request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly into the microphone. Recording device be solely utilized by the Township Clerk's Office shall be the official record of the Township Council meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison.
Present.
Mr. Schmidt.
Present.
Mr. Sauter.
Here.
Mrs. Strada. Here. Mrs. Winters. Here. Mr. Mercado.
Present.
Mr. Bianchini.
Present.
Mr. Lechner.
Here.
Chief Earl.
Here.
Mr. Carlemere.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mr. Carter.
Here.
I was just notified right prior to the meeting that from the solicitor we need to go into a quick closed session regarding potential litigation with the township. So is there anything to add to that?
No, it should only be about 5 minutes.
So we're going to be in closed session for about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Need a motion
to go into closed session.
Closed session.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thanks.
But you look good.
Near the rec center.
No, the other side of Bible.
Oh, on the other side. Okay, okay. Yeah, I know. Off of,
Driver's Lane.
Driver's Lane, Kelly Driver's Lane.
Yeah. When we first moved here, that was a dirt patch. It was so bad, and we were looking, checking out the neighborhood. I wouldn't drive down.
And now it's a main thoroughfare.
Yep.
Let me go see. Because then I can move over.
It's actually for $800,000. I mean, normal. I mean, in a normal, in a perfect world. Yeah. One word thing. Online. I think you will. Good question.
Chief,
Okay.
how long is the no passing zone gonna be in Black, is it Blackhurst Pike or Blackhurst Pike Road? Or Blackhurst Pike? Say it's recommended by Doc, the last one. 232.
I have to say, honestly, I'm not, that must have come through the township engineer. I don't remember seeing that.
Probably would.
Yeah,
I wonder why we have to, that's a state road, right?
it is. I guess they need like a consent resolution to move forward. I don't think they have to. Maybe they're being courteous, but I wasn't sure. Because they've come in before and done other, unless it's something we asked for.
But you know
Maybe it's
that,
related.
wouldn't you?
It may have come out of, I'm just guessing, it may have come out of the planning for the outlet, which is that section of the
Oh,
pike.
yeah, there you
We may
go.
have made, we did some traffic recommendations on the plans came through, which I just can't remember exactly what they were. It could have been
Yeah, I
that.
bet you that's what it
And
is.
then it would require a resolution.
Yeah.
So it might be related to that. I'm not,
That makes sense, though. Yeah. So
but I asked him now that you mentioned it.
told you, there is a corner.
Yeah.
And then I realized it's like my older sister. And I didn't call her sister. I would be banned for
We could do that. Our granddaughter goes 3 nights a week to dance. Were you right?
No, I'm not sure.
Huh. I asked her something with passing.
I didn't look back at all the other documents to make sure it wasn't something I sent in months ago, but it doesn't ring a bell. I'm gonna text him.
yeah, is it the whole, I mean,
He doesn't know.
Blackhurst Pike in,
He was saying, you know, it might be, we requested it, because that's the state road because of the new shopping thing, and that sounds bad. That wasn't
would be,
it. That wasn't it.
but it's there.
No. No, if you get down into Blackbird, there's a stretch there.
Thanks, Dan.
Hopefully it'll take you back.
Call something like
Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hutchison?
Present.
Mr. Schmidt?
Present.
Mr. Sauter?
Here.
Mrs. Trotter? Here. Mrs. Winters? Here. Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Beatty?
Present. We were in litigation to discuss potential, we were in closed session to discuss potential litigation that may be coming about with the township. We have discussed it and we have given our solicitor direction, but at this time, nothing has been resolved. Dave, anything to add to that? So we will go to the first public portion. Anyone wishing to address council, please raise your hand, come to the microphone on any agenda items only. Ray?
Good evening, Council. Ray Paul Dor Ariel. On agenda item, ordinance 14-15, with the Blackwood Lake Dam, that is affiliated with the, let me gather my thought on that 1 second. The recent, I just drew a blank and I apologize. I'm going to rethink that and talk to you later about it. Thank you.
Yeah.
There is.
I may have wanted to redress it, but I just drew a complete blank. Sorry, but I'm going to take my medicine. I'll be back.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of council, Jim Williams, Tiffany Place, Ariel. I have a question about 1409-230. Has resolution authorizing change order number 1 for the Sturbridge Oaks Basin Rehabilitation in the Township of Gloucester. Number 1, I was just wondering, what was order number 1? And as it says there's a change for that order, what was it and what's being changed?
That's the first change order under that contract. Is that what it refers to, Tom?
Yes.
Change order number 1 for that contract.
Reduction.
Reduction.
Reduction 1.
Went from 165 to 143,679.
Is it? I just wonder how much has been spent so far. Is that, I don't know, is that the pond that's at the base of Sturbridge Oaks? Like there's a big retention area at the bottom, or at the lower end of Sturbridge Oaks. There's been a lot of, like over the last, I wouldn't say 5 or 6 months, a lot of construction in there. There's been just, they're roaming around all over the place, dumping dirt, dumping. And it just, I don't know, from when they started, it just seems like it's worse. I mean, it's just a big, it was bad, but it's successful now. I mean, I don't know what is either being done, not being done, or what the intention is of being done in there. I mean, I thank God I don't live near there. I don't know where are we going with this? I mean, for that particular, for the retention pond.
Well, it looks like, from what I'm reading, it looks like the retention pond is completed, and it's a reduction in the amount that was originally part of the contract. The exact difference or what was changed, I don't have, I'm not sure of at this point, but it's a reduction. Yeah, I see the list of items.
It's mainly soil excavation and off-site disposal.
So it's a reduction of dollars or reduction of area?
That was 15,000.
Right.
And then the other big one, it says type G soil fill.
They probably had less soil
Right.
that you need to fill it up, and you took less soil out.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's to repair that basin so that it percolates the water and back
Okay.
into the ground. And
And
sometimes
hopefully
you
it
have to
percolates a
maintain
little.
it bit.
And they did install chain link fence around it.
Pardon me?
They installed a chain link fence around it.
Okay.
6-foot chain link fence.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Paul Myers, Church Street, Blackwood, New Jersey. I'm a member of the Blackwood Lake Advisory Board. And on behalf of the Blackwood Lake Advisory Board and some area residents, we'd like to thank the mayor and council for your immediate and swift attention to the repairs that are needed to thwart any possible problems that we may have with that dam. As you know, it is in very need of repair, and we appreciate your time and attention to it and getting it done so that we don't have problems down the road. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Yes.
Good evening, Council. Tom Crone, Gloucester Township. Welcome back, Mr. President. I understand you had some health issues, and I'm glad to see you back in the chair. Couple of things. The first thing I wanted to ask about, you went into executive session. My understanding of the Open Public Meetings Act, a resolution is required prior to doing that. Is there a resolution, or was this done on the fly?
This came up at tonight's council meeting as part of our general format. We have an open resolution to go in closed session. We can go into closed session at any time, or any resolution can be introduced. I advised Council President just prior to the start of the meeting that some issue came up just this past week that I wanted to go into closed session to get some thoughts of council. It's a possible litigation to be filed, and that's what we discussed.
I understand, but again, you're saying you have a running... I thought that there was supposed to be a resolution that specifically laid out the reasons why, whether it be a checkbox going down a checkbox, whether it was for personnel, litigation, or other issues. You're saying you have this running resolution. That's what you said. I'm clarifying as to what you said. Words are, I appreciate that.
Let me say, at a regular session of council,
Right.
it's open to the public.
Correct.
At any time, a council member can introduce a resolution to be considered and reviewed and adopted.
Right.
That includes a possible need to go into closed session. Now, as long as the resolution, and I mentioned to Council President that we should have done a roll call on that, so I talked on that after we walked out. But that resolution says that we're going into closed session. Council is obligated to advise the members of the public as to what the closed session deals with. This deals with possible litigation. Litigation is not filed.
Right.
But it's pending possible litigation.
But you're required by OPMA to have a resolution for that.
And which we did a resolution. Doesn't mean the resolution has to be part of the agenda.
I disagree, and I believe that others would as well. Can you make that, print the resolution and make it part of the record? You're supposed to have a resolution. It's not something you can just make up as you go along. This is not, Mr. Collier, this is not something that I think is open for discussion or interpretation. The law is what the law is. You're supposed to have a resolution. You don't have a resolution, so therefore that meeting was theoretically illegal.
So that's going to be Resolution 1409-33?
That's after the fact. You're closing the barn door after the horse is out.
Okay, so we moved probably too quick. We should have characterized it as Resolution 1409-233 with the motion to go into closed session. That's what we should have done.
But you did not. So therefore you did not. That meeting was illegal. Yes or no?
I disagree with you.
Then we're going to have to get an advisory opinion on that. We're going to take it as far as we can. That was an illegal meeting. Anything that went on in that room, I'll file the OPRA tomorrow. I want to know what happened in there.
Well, you'll find out what happened in there when the issue is resolved, like any other closed session issue.
And that's fine. That's fine. But you look for it. But, and again...
I understand one thing on OPRA. You make an OPRA request now, which you have a right to do. The clerk's going to respond to you that it's not a resolved matter within the 7 days, and there's nothing to report back to you. OPRA is not a continuing obligation.
And that's fine.
Make another OPRA request.
But you can quote me OPRA all evening long. You still violated OPMA. This governing body, in my opinion, and probably the opinion of a judge, is going to say this governing body violated OPMA. There is no resolution. You just made up a number after you went in there. You've admitted to the fact that you jumped the gun. It's a big deal. Procedure is a big deal in our republic. We just don't not follow the law. We have enough lawlessness in the school boards. Now we have lawlessness in our town council.
I disagree with you.
That's fine. But as Mr. Hutchison made perfectly clear a few meetings back, perception is reality. And my perception is this was a lawless act perpetrated by the town council who didn't feel like doing what they're supposed to do.
Absolutely not true.
But perception is now my reality.
Characterize it any way you want.
And I'm entitled to that, and I will continue to do it.
Okay, put this on the record.
I wish you would.
As council member, and I believe I advised the business administrator, there was a need to go into closed session on particular pending possible litigation.
That's fine.
Let me finish speaking. So then I advised the council president before the meeting started that there's a need to adopt the resolution to go into closed session on possible litigation. It doesn't show as an item on the agenda, but council president said, let's do that first rather than at the end of the meeting, rather than take time and then come back out. Let's do that first. And I said, that's fine. So after we finished our opening, we indicated we're going to go into closed session. The announcement was made that there's a motion to go into closed session on items of pending litigation, that he was just advised by council of a need to do that. I advised him it was appropriate. In principle, we probably should have called it Resolution 1409-233.
Here's my problem, Mr. Carlemere, not to interrupt you, but this, Mr. Crone, I'm sorry.
In principle, in the spirit and intent of the Open Public Meetings Act, council complied, and council went into closed session. We came out of closed session and we indicated what the topic of discussion was. And as you know, when that discussion now is closed, then it's a matter of public record, and you're free to open the minutes that the clerk will prepare.
Now, as I was about to say, that's backdating it. And it turns out that this local government has a thing for backdating things.
That's not true.
Suppose one of Chief Earl's officers tonight decides he's going to arrest me, does not Mirandize me, goes through the entire process. You can't backdate my Miranda rights. My civil liberties were violated. Anything that comes from that is fruit of the poisonous tree. I'm walking free. It's the law. The law says what the law says, not the spirit. It's not if we feel like doing it. It's not if we discussed it. The law is the law, period. Now, I'm going to move forward with a complaint, and we'll take it from there. And of course I'm free to. Thank you for pointing out what is self-evident. But I appreciate that. Now, my time has expired. I'll let someone else speak, but I do have issues. This came up because of tonight. My main point was about the bond that you guys are going to talk about tonight on GEMS and for the Blackwood Dam. I'm asking nicely that they be separated, not be voted on together, not one lump sum, okay? One of the reasons being, we still...
I apologize, stop.
That's okay.
But there is a...
I understand that.
Public hearing.
I just want to get this out right now before we get to the public hearing. We still have yet to hear what happened to the $1.2 million that was asked for about a year and a half ago. I think it would be imprudent and improper for this governing body to move forward with giving more money, the taxpayers' money, after a ginormous, that's an industry term, ginormous tax increase that people are still feeling and going to continue to feel for months and years to come. You're going to ask for another $1.6 million when we, the people, the taxpayers, the residents, the citizens of this town don't know where the $1.2 million went. So I'm going to ask at this point that we don't even get to the public hearing on that you do the right thing, table it, bring the trustee in here, let him speak before this council and the people on the record and tell us where that money went. Number one. Number two, why do you need more? And give us an itemized list. Now, secondly, on to the Blackwood Dam, we're now finding out there's going to cost a little more than it was supposed to be. Maybe that's fine. Let's get it fixed if it needs to be fixed. But let's get the numbers right before we sit down tonight and go, wow, it's 1.6, 1.8, maybe it could be this. Let's put a stop to all of that, and let's go back to the 1.2 for GEMS and find out why it was needed, what it was spent on, and where it went. Is there any left over? It's my money. And I want to know where it went. So I'll be back, but you guys have a great next couple of minutes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no other hands, we'll close the first public portion. We have ordinances of second reading, and there will be a public hearing on this ordinance. Ordinance O-14-15, bond ordinance authorizing various improvements to the Blackwood Lake Dam and providing for a portion of the cost of closure, remediation, and related activities with respect to the Gloucester Environmental Management Service landfill in and for the Township of Gloucester, County of New Jersey, appropriating the sum of $1,690,110. Therefore, authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds or bond anticipation notes of the Township of Gloucester County and Camden, New Jersey, in the aggregate principal amount of up to $1,609,629, making certain terminations and covenants, and authorizing certain related actions in connection with the foregoing. This ordinance will allow the township to bond the various improvements to Blackwood Lake Dam and the obligation to the Gems landfill. We now have a public hearing on this ordinance. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Okay?
Again, Ray Polidor, Ariel. Gathered my thoughts, medicated, I'm doing good now. My question is specific. Actually, it comes behind Tom's question and or statement on that. Before you go ahead and vote on that, today, this question was asked at the last regular meeting, and does the council have present today a list of expenditures and what that 1.2 was spent on? Is it available to the public today before you vote on the next 1.6?
Just so you know, Ray, there was an EDUB question, which we'll read into the record during that time. But Mr. Carlemere has some information. I would ask that you share that at this point.
Following a prior meeting of council, I directed a letter to Mr. Bucciarone. He's the trustee representing the township on the board of trustees for the Gems Trust. Directed that letter on the 27th. I asked him a two-part letter. One dealt with the prior cash call and one dealing with the current cash call. I asked them to give us a list of the dollars that are requested by the township and the total dollars requested by the trust, and also an accounting of how the money is going to be dispersed and who are the reopening settling defendants that are participating in that. I received a response back specifically. They indicated, and it came through the attorney representing the trust at Arthur Greiner's office, they indicated that the total trust cash call is $2,500,000. There is a list of reopening settling defendants starting with the city of Philadelphia all the way down to the Township of Gloucester, indicating the Township of Gloucester's responsibility on its percentage breakdown of $851,631. They attached to that a line item breakdown from 1,000 to 9,000 as the line item numbers, indicating how much money and where it is going to, and it includes such things as government oversight, Phase 2 construction, Phase 2 O&M, fees, groundwater, routine monitoring, horizontal well, professional services, a whole list of how much money is being spent on each one of those line items, coming down to a total of $2,495,800. And that came in to my office and has been sent to Mr. Cardis and to the mayor's office as well as the clerk's office, dealing with this bond that's offered tonight.
Okay, did I understand you correctly that that is what they're introducing, is what they're using this new cash call for?
That's correct.
Okay.
In reference to this bond.
Okay, the question was asked, and that council and or administrator be prepared for this evening, where the 1.2 went in the previous cash call before moving forward with the most recent. Does council or the township have the detailed itemized list available to the public before you go ahead and pass this ordinance again this evening?
That was not part of the documentation that I received, but the trustee has been providing, I believe, quarterly reports to the administration offices for several years now, I believe, as to their quarterly reports on the expenditure of monies. I did not receive a specific response to the first part of my question on the prior cash call as yet.
It was at the last regular council meeting that Ms. Musser asked that question, and it was you, Council President, that asked Mr. Cardis to have that furnished for this meeting, and that sure we would know where that money was going and the detailed information. We surely wouldn't pass that without knowing, which seemed like a typical procedure type question. So with that request that was made, both of the resident, Ms. Musser, of you, Council President, to the Administrator, the question I'm following up with, is that a detailed list here tonight of the prior cash call expenditures before you go ahead and give them more of our money without knowing where the last bit went?
No, we don't have that right here.
But I think just for clarity, that last cash call, I don't recall what year that was, but the township held paying that money for several months, if I remember correctly, in order for them to give us an accounting. If my recollection is serving me, we did receive an accounting of how the money was to be used from the prior cash call, prior to us turning those dollars over to the trust. Might be why they didn't include it here, but they haven't specifically answered my inquiry. But I can tell you, I recall that documentation came in prior to the township releasing the money previously.
So if I may have a question, Dave, is there a deadline on this? Is there,
I believe it's October for them to receive this money. Now, under the consent decree, if we delay, or any of the reopening settlement defendants delay payment, they're subject to penalties under the federal documentation. I don't believe they charged the township penalties for the last time that we delayed, recognizing what our concerns were. But we are subject to penalties under the consent decree. But October is the date that they need the dollars.
Now, you all know I'm as respectful as I can be when I approach you, whether something that's a burning issue or otherwise. I cannot believe that a resident requested, and Ms. Musser requested that specific information before moving forward with that. And I'm going to ask it this way. Has anyone on council, besides the administrator and the solicitor, seen the expenditures from the last cash call that feels confident enough that it's okay to go ahead and bond more money without knowing where the last bunch of it went? Is everyone on council comfortable doing that without knowing where the last bit of money went? I don't think that your household runs like that and the business doesn't run like that, but that's not taxpayer money. This is. And I would invite you to ask any other council member if they've seen it, and if not, if they're comfortable going ahead and passing this ordinance tonight without knowing where the last bunch of money went.
right, I'm confident that the trustees utilized those funds appropriately. However, since it's in October, I'm going to, as long as we're not putting the township at further harm, I would ask that this council hold up on this until we can get a definitive answer and have a itemized list of what was spent. I just think it's a good idea to do that at this time. And again, it's up to council. I'm just making that recommendation, that suggestion. And we can make that as part of the ordinance, whether we vote for it or whether we hold it.
If I'm understanding you, your recommendation is tabling that until council, the entire council, and the public?
Recommendation, right, but obviously council has to all.
No, I get that, and I commend you for that recommendation. I would also wish that if that is going to be the case, and when those detailed numbers come about, that be put out possibly on the website or somewhere where the public can see it, and maybe join our meeting and if they have any questions regarding that. And if the left hand equals the right hand and everything's good, you move forward and do what must be done. But that's a good recommendation. I appreciate that.
Dan, you have a question?
Yes.
A couple little questions. One, we have ordinance 14-15.
Dan, the folks can't hear you.
We have ordinance 14-15. Is that coupled with this issue? And if it is coupled, can we uncouple them and move forward on 14-15 this evening? Okay, so that's issue number one. Issue number two is we asked for the information from the trustees for the current cash call. The prior cash call up to this point was not questioned. I have a hard time saying no to this particular cash call given our lack of comments on the last cash call. And I do recall, as Mr. Parliament indicated, we did hold up payment on that for a significant period of time to the point where I was very uncomfortable. And we finally made payment. My recommendation is you move forward on 14-15. And if you want to do your due diligence and check back on what we've already received, fine. But to withhold today would be inappropriate.
Well, Dan, my only thing is that we're not violating the consent decree. That I leave to Mr. Parliament. And we have some time. It's just putting it out there as a possible remedy to understand what, to answer, be able to answer the question. That's all. If there's something in the decree, like we were pushing the last time. And again, I believe the money was spent appropriately. I'm very confident in that. But again, it's just, this was a recommendation, and every council person has the right to.
May I interject with Mr. Hutchinson's question on why they could not be separated? That was also a question asked here at the microphone. What is the reason that it can't be separated so the Blackwood Lake Dam could still move forward with what it needs to do and the other money? Because I'm sure the Blackwood Dam would have no problem explaining what work is being done.
I think Tom can explain.
Because of the way that the ordinance is crafted, and it's not different than any other ordinance we've done in the past. When we know that we have multiple capital projects, you combine them into one ordinance. We do that all the time. Because this ordinance was introduced and advertised with both projects in there, you cannot separate them at this point.
Who drafts that ordinance? Who words and drafts that ordinance?
By bond counsel, which would be Parker McKay.
Okay. Could you not then vote this down, reintroduce it in its separate ways, and pass it that way?
It starts the clock ticking all over again.
All right. But if nothing else, you have plenty of time. Tonight, as Mr. Hutchinson, I understand what you're saying, but it's more irresponsible to think that just because you got an explanation of how the money being taken from our pocket tonight and not explaining where the last pocket grab went from, and I'm going to be explaining it that way, that's a lot of money. Part of it's yours, part of it's ours. And if you're okay with someone constantly asking for money and you don't feel the need to ask, what did you do with it? I mean, at home we have to explain that. Went to Wawa, I got gas, I don't know what else I did. But this is a lot of money. It would be irresponsible to go forward with this. As Mr. Bianchini said, we have time. You have time. In 2 weeks, you can have the information that you want. You guys will know, the public will know, and you still can vote it at that time and move forward with it. Delaying it 2 weeks is not going to miss any opportunities other than to make a decision too quickly just because we're confident that they spend it properly, or this guy told us that we're good. Put it on paper, that's what we do. Our township administrator, he lives by numbers. He lives by numbers, and if they don't equal out and he can't figure out where the money went, you don't go home until you're happy with your numbers. That's the township administrator. We're council. This is what we decide on. When the numbers are explained, we move forward. You don't give more money out to your kids until you find out that they spend it responsibly the first time. Let's not do that with the taxpayers' money either. Thank you.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we table this to the next meeting.
My only question is procedurally, we have a open public hearing, so should we continue with that?
You can finish the public hearing and then make a motion.
Okay. So do we, is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Walt Ellis. I live on Central Avenue, and I'm also a member of the Blackwood Lake Advisory Committee. And this is a little bit of a surprise to me to say this because of what I hear, and I just was going to ask a couple questions. I believe at and whether it was the last regular council meeting, someone, Mr. Cardis probably said why you grouped these things together. Seemed like it made sense to me, but I'm wondering now, will some dispute with this ordinance hold up the money that we need for the dam?
I would say, and Tom, correct me, that if for some reason the delay continues, we can then go back and pull it out and separate it, and then and go forward with Blackwood Lake on its own.
I mean, that is probably your intention anyway, right?
In my opinion, delaying this ordinance will not affect the work that's going to be done at Blackwood Lake Dam. The engineer has already been awarded the engineering part of it, which we have adequate funds available now to have him move along on that. So he still has to design this thing before it goes out for bid. I don't think it's going to go out to bid till sometime, John, in December.
We still have to get the permits from the state, and they're never quick.
Right.
It should be up to the state by the middle of September next week for permitting, but I can't imagine them going that quick. So it's probably through the end of the year before we're up to date.
So I was going to have another question, which I guess would really go to you. I see that the cost has gone up about $200,000, and I wonder if you could maybe quickly, in layman's terms, tell us why that was.
Not sure where the original cost came from.
I don't know where that came from. I heard that somebody said it increased by 200-some thousand. It's consistent with where the numbers were to begin with.
That was from the patch
I mean,
yeah, it's incorrect. It's not correct.
well, so what is the number for the dam, the estimated number now?
750.
Around 750,000 is what we're expecting. It's being shared with the county. The county's doing roughly 50%, not 50%.
Okay.
The township's picking up the other half. So the town, since the work's being done under the township, they have to promote the additional money they can reimburse by the county.
Well, maybe my head spins a little bit because now that you say that, I think that's what I heard before. So really then there isn't any difference. I saw something, I guess it was on the agenda that's on the website, somewhere I just read today about some of the things that are going to need to be done. And I forget the technical terms, but essentially you're making soil cement and
The soil cement, jet grounding, and polyurethane grounding cracks to essentially build a soil cement wall within the dam embankment. Plus, there's a lot of other miscellaneous repairs the state wants us to make there.
so that was always what the plan
That
was.
was always there. Now, when the leakage first came up several months ago, and we didn't know the extent of it, there were all kinds of numbers being thrown out and says, it's that or that. So maybe the number back then, before we knew what the extent and what the repair cost would be. But once we started focusing what we needed to do there, it got to $750,000.
So you people within a couple of weeks plan on making the proposal to the state for the permitting, right?
We haven't, the state knows what we're doing.
And I know this would be a guess, but when would work probably, best case, actual start?
I would like to see the work go on over the winter so we can finish it by spring, and build the lake up for the spring.
Okay.
Fingers crossed. If the state sometimes takes longer.
And I kind of apologize for that mistake because, you know, numbers come from different places. And when I heard you talk, I remember hearing that before because the 50/50 was about 375 or something like that. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Pete.
Good evening, Pete Heinbaum, Morningstar Court. Sticking with the Blackwood Dam, you mentioned 750,000. We're asking, the 730,000 is the amount of the repairs on the listed on. I don't have the agenda in front of me, but isn't that the amount that's shown as the repair cost? Maybe I'm confusing.
I don't have those file with me. I know it was.
What does the agenda say? 794 is what's being asked.
Then there's down payment, which brings the amount of the obligation to $756,258.
So part of that 794 would be for Parker McKay and Acacia Financial and things like that. So the repair cost is something in the 750 range or whatever we're coming up with. And the difference is commissions and fees and such to, for the
Plus
bond.
the permanent financing, plus you were able to put the first year's interest in the application.
Okay. This is called a Blackwood Dam repair. Because of that, why are we able to capitalize, issue bonds and capitalize this cost?
Because it meets the requirement under local bond law to be capitalized.
Doesn't matter if it's just repair to bring it up to normal operation.
Just terminology.
Okay. And that's the same answer you would give for the GEMS remediation in general. But to me, this is just kind of a remediation to bring it up to...
GEMS, and Mr. Carlinger can speak on it, but I think the GEMS is a judgment, so to speak.
I mean, how are we able to capitalize it versus...
It's permitted under local bond law.
It's referenced in the consent decree also, recognizing council governing bodies have to go through a bonding process.
Okay. So has there been a motion to table the, that hasn't happened yet?
Finish
Okay.
the procedure of the public hearing.
Right.
And then once everybody's had their say, then we'll discuss it.
I just have to say what Mr. Pallador was getting at. Even before the first reading of this ordinance a couple weeks ago, even for Ms. Musser to come up here and ask why these answers weren't, why the GEMS trustee isn't in attendance today and 2 weeks ago, and why this information isn't in everyone's hands today and 2 weeks ago. It just, without being asked, without Ms. Musser having to come up here, Mr. Palladoro or anybody, I don't understand how, I have the same reaction Mr. Palladoro has. I don't understand how we were ready to move forward without that information.
Well, Pete, in the last time when there was a cash call, again, we took our time. We wanted to understand what it was, and I think most of us who were part of that had that answer and felt comfortable with that answer back then. So, like I said, I'm very confident that it was handled appropriately, but I made my recommendation. We had a discussion here, which is always good, and we'll move forward. And again, we have on the table a motion to table it, so we'll see where that goes.
Okay. And also, I heard Mr. Carliver mention that there is a quarterly expenditure report issued.
Quarterly report.
I see the quarterly report on the GEMS website, and that's basically just measurements and measurement data and things like that. It's nothing to do with, there's not a single dollar sign on that report. Is that what we're referring to?
We have a repository, am I right, Dave? That was requested way back, so I'm sure Mr. Cardis can grab that and make that available, and it is available to residents.
Just on an ongoing basis, it is available to the residents? How is that?
Repository, yes.
In what fashion? I
You
haven't.
want to come in and take a look
Oh, you
at
have to
it?
come in and, okay. Could there be something similar to a bill list? I'm talking about the GEMS website now, and talking about the GEMS trustee being more open and transparent with our township funds. On the GEMS website, I know, like I said, I see the quarterly scientific report put up there after every quarter. Could we have a similar like financial report or bill list or expenditure list?
I'll ask Mr. Cardis as well as Mr. Carlinger to present that recommendation or that request to the trustee.
But I will say, unfortunately, we can't control the trustee as a whole. We can direct our trustee, our representative, to provide us information. And once it comes in here, since we're requiring it to be made filed here, it becomes subject to Oprah. We can't control them, how they disclose their account.
So Gloucester Township doesn't operate that GEMS website? Okay.
Correct.
Well, then could the the Gloucester Township GEMS trustee present this bill list or expenditure list, and we post it on the Gloucester Township website on a quarterly basis? I just think there's no reason in the world why this can't be open and transparent public information readily available without opening it or without getting angry at a council meeting or wondering why the cash call comes up, or?
Well, it is available, Pete, and, like I said, there's a repository and it is available, and we'll have that discussion to see if we can put it on their website or our website.
Okay.
We've never been not wanting to put anything out there, so, again, we'll take that under advisement.
Okay, thank you.
Right? This is still the public hearing, right?
Ray Polidor, Ariel again. Oddly enough, I was at the last workshop meeting, and as you were preparing for today's agenda, your trustee was here in the capacity of the Public Works as one of his other positions here in Township. Did it not occur to council to maybe ask the GEMS trustee, who is here again as Public Works representative, on that, and you could have been prepared to maybe done that. And in the future, if there is someone here, I know that we have in the past had MUA commissioners here, but in order to get answers for council, for the people, would it not be a greater advantage that if those representatives here are here in whatever capacity, to at least have council ask them if they would extend the courtesy to express what information is needed for you, council, and the people? Thank you.
Anyone else on the public hearing? No other hands, we can close the public hearing. Now, Dave, Councilman Seiler put a motion to table. Is that so? Okay.
Well, I would say since we held it after the motion should be made a second time, I don't think we had a second motion.
So, sorry, you restate your motion.
Make a motion on the table this,
Second.
So we have a roll call on tabling this ordinance, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Before I vote, I gotta say, I'm concerned that we're gonna hold up the dam project, and that really bothers me. I understand the position of Mr. Heimbaum and Ray in that you need to have certain information in order to make appropriate decisions. I think that we have the information on the current cash call, and basically what we're doing is we're double checking our work, so to speak, from a prior day. I'm troubled, but I'm going to rely upon the representations of the experts associated with the dam project, because it's not going to delay it. I surely hope that's accurate, so I'll vote yes. I'm sorry.
You're voting yes.
Yes. Yes to table.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes, to table.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes, to table.
Yes, to table.
Let's table the next, regular agenda.
I just would ask that we did that. We have resolutions of a table resolution, right?
218 resolution authorizing the renewal of retail consumption liquor license in the Township of Gloucester.
This resolution authorizes the renewal of a retail consumption liquor license in the township for Oak Cloth Inc., and it's in pocket. So we need a motion to untable this resolution, am I correct?
I don't believe it was specifically tabled to this agenda, so you could need a motion to take it off the table.
A motion to take it off the table.
So moved. Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Van King?
Yes. Now we want a motion to pass this resolution.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Mr. Van King?
Yes. We now have resolution of consent agenda. Any council person wishing to remove any of these resolutions, please let me know now. If not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second?
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Seiler?
Yes.
Mrs. Trotta?
Yes.
Mrs. Winter?
Yes.
Mr. McConnell?
Yes.
Mr. Dingley?
Yes. We have a GTE Gov access question, and I'll read it into the record. The eGov question is from Linda Musser. She lives at 50 Cameron Circle, Laurel Springs. 08021 is the zip. As a follow-up to last meeting regarding GEMS, as at the June 6, 2000, says 2011. I think she means two.
So that's the prior cash call.
Oh, okay. I'll just read it then. At the June 6, 2011 workshop meeting, Mr. Cardis addressed the bond ordinance O-11-16 for $1,226,349, providing for a portion of the cost of closure remediation-related activities with respect to GEMS. It has stated that GT ordered to make payment. Actual order stems from the court decision. Not a lot we can do. 3,600 was the current shortfall of this money was needed.
3.6 million.
But it's not what it says there, but was needed to operate GEMS project to 2014-2015. Believes it will be last time they can make this cash call. At the council meeting on 6/13/2011, at the first reading, again it was stated that it was bonded in 1996, 1.4, 2008, 637K, and now in 2011, the last one, don't think they can do this again, 1.226349. Again, I will ask a question. Does anyone have an accounting for the 1.226.349 and how it was spent? Did the other parties involved contribute? How much? If not, why not? Was GT able to recover any of our costs from the insurers? It was mentioned at the workshop meeting 6/6/11 that GT may be able to get some insurance dollar signs. How often do the trustees meet? When was the last meeting? Is there a liaison from council who attends the meeting? If so, who is that? And did they attend meeting? In my opinion, we should have full accounting of where the $1.2 million was spent prior to floating another bond. A new bond in the amount of $1,609,620 includes Blackwood Lake. I know I asked this at the last meeting, but I feel the need to ask again. Why are these two bonds lumped together? There was an article in Patch stating that repairs to Blackwood Lake are going to be approximately $223K more than anticipated. Does this mean the bond will jump from 1.6 to 1.8? With both GEMS and Blackwood Lake being together, it looks as if there would be an opportunity to commingle funds. More reason why we need a complete and separate accounting, one for Blackwood Lake dam repairs and one for GEMS. Mr. Parliamentary, received information.
Yes, we indicated earlier in the meeting, I directed a letter to the township's representative as a trustee on that board on August 27th, and I asked that they provide first a total amount of money received from the prior cash call with a list of amounts received from each obligated defendant, showing the defendants that failed to contribute. And second, an accounting showing how the money was dispersed. Second part of the letter, I requested a total amount of the current cash call with a list of the amounts to be received from each obligated defendant. Second, a statement reflecting the defendants that have failed to respond to the current cash call. And third, an accounting showing how the money is intended to be dispersed. Requested that they provide that information to council at a time of its work session meeting on September 3rd. I didn't receive it then, but I have received it. The clerk has received it. We directed it to the mayor as well as Mr. Cardis. They responded by providing the current cash call, which is a total of approximately $2,500,000. They provided a breakdown list of the settling defendants that are obligated to provide and what is their percentage share, listing from the city of Philadelphia all the way down to the Township of Gloucester. And as you know, the Township of Gloucester, which they reflect, that $2,500,000 is $851,630. They disclosed 3 settling defendants that are not contributing. They responded by those defendants are out of business. It's shown as Glidden, Active Oil Service, and National Vulcanized Fiber. That they are out of business and bankrupt companies. They cannot recover any dollars percentage from them. They did not provide any information in this transmittal of the prior cash call or a list of how that money was spent. Dealing with this $2,500,000, they attached a line item breakdown of their each line item where the money is going to be spent. For example, line item 1,000 is government oversight 5,000, county 10,000, all the way down to monitoring programs, groundwater routine monitoring, horizontal well installation with the dollar amounts related to each one, and that's available. Provided it to the business administrator. It shows the current shortfall when you total these categories of $2,495,800. They responded only to the second part of the letter, not the first, dealing with the prior cash call.
So the other questions in here, Dave, I'm not sure if you can answer. How often do the trustees meet?
I can't answer how often they meet. We can inquire with our trustee, but if I do recall the consent decree, I believe they used to meet once a month on site. Whether they still do or not, I can't respond to. I'm not sure.
I would ask that you could find that out for, and then send that information out. When was the last meeting? We'll have to also get that information. The other question, is there a liaison from council? No, there is no liaison from council that attends these meetings.
Keep in mind, the creation of the trust and the number of trustees is a creature of the consent decree, federal court order, and township being one of the settling defendants. The major settling defendants have trustees. That's how they do it.
We did discuss why the bonds are together and they can't be separated at this time. The price of the repairs to the dam did not change, so I'm not sure how that got, but that stayed the same throughout this bond ordinance. I think that gives us the answer or the questions. Again, I would ask that we get those answers about the meetings and stuff by as early as we can, please, and give that information so that we have it for the next meeting. Thank you. We now have the second public portion. Anyone wishing to speak on any item, please raise your hand and come to the microphone. Jim?
Evening, Council. Jim Gibblestis, Ariel. Continuing on the gems. Going back through the memory bank, which hopefully is still good. Isn't this trustee thing with gems supposed to end sometime?
I believe within a year,
It was July 2015.
2015.
And the state takes over?
That's correct.
Okay, and then there'll be no more cash calls or anything like that?
That's the strict language that's in the federal decree. Once the state takes over, there's no longer funding provided. It's a state obligation at that point.
Okay, so this would, from what we're seeing, the last call, they would dissolve the trustees and all this good stuff?
Well, I would hope that's what's going to happen, because
Okay.
that's my understanding of the consent decree. And the consent decree goes back to 1997. And now, if there's a reason, I would tend to think they would have to go back into federal court to do any modification or extension of that, would be my thought.
Okay.
That's how the decree reads.
Now, the expenses that are associated with this bond thing, will they extend? I mean, if they do not utilize that money by 2015, June 2015? July, okay. If they don't use it all, does the state give it back? They keep it. Try for something. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Ray?
Ray Polidora, Ariel. I'm sorry that you have to hear my voice for the third time tonight. Just want to let you know that, once again, periodically the live stream is going down. It's going down at some pretty critical times when people are talking important matters and the folks are raising Cain about it as our phones are buzzing. I want to thank Mr. Cardis. I made a request to Mr. Cardis a few meetings ago, and he furnished me with the numbers that I was asking for about the red light fines and frequency thereof. And he gave me the list of 2013 and the first half of 2014. One of my questions was then, and was hoping that you would address that tonight, for the missing months of May and June. Have we spoken to American Traffic Solutions as to how they are going to reimburse Gloucester Township for the what looks like 585 violations that were improperly sent out and were voided?
My understanding, Patty Carroll, the court administrator, is communicating back and forth with ATS. The last I heard, and I meant to talk to Mr. Quadamere about it, is they offered a percentage of what the actual fine would have been. I don't recall what that percentage was. I believe it was somewhere around 60%. So I think we need to go back to them and talk to them if we get that getting reimbursed 100%. And of course, that would be $73.50 for us of each $85 violation. The other $11.50 goes to the state.
Wouldn't we make out that, well, after running the numbers, 585 violations, to which, let's say that we're not going to fine all of them guilty and collective fee, a certain percentage. Ironically, it comes out to $49,725. You really opened my eyes with the little note you put in the corner. When we originally got into the contract with American Traffic Solutions, I believe it was $47,500 per month we were paying at $4,750 per camera times the whopping 10 cameras that we have. And it is to date that we're paying them $49,710 per month, $50,000 a month. Now, the fact that 585 violations will not be sent out nor collected happens to be $49,725. Why are we going to pay them for the cameras, $50,000 for 2 months of cameras? Why not have them reimburse us for the lack of cameras? It's a wash. But we don't need 60% of what we would have got when all we have to do is recoup what we were going to pay them or already did in $49,710.
I don't disagree with you. That's a conversation I need to have with Mr. Quadamere, and we have to move forward on it. The other issue was, if my recollection under the agreement, that if the fines come in below the amount that we pay per month for the cameras, that they reimburse the difference. And both myself and Quadamere agree with that.
Wasn't the conversation, and I kind of recall when we were introducing this system, that if we didn't meet the nut, we didn't pay the nut, quote unquote. If we didn't make the $47,500 for all 10 cameras, there was no nut, not pay the difference.
I'm not going to quote the language.
Can we check that in that original contract? And incrementally, when did this go from 47.5 to 49.7?
I believe it's within the last year.
Okay, that's still very, I mean, that's a good business to be in for them, because with some of the numbers I'm seeing here, they still make everything they want, and, you know, it looks like at the bottom line, given the numbers that you've given me, with what came in at 1.290, what went out 894,781. We had $395,000 in, which we have to give a chunk to the state. We had to give a chunk out, right?
I have to check to see whether those are net of the state. I believe they're net of the state.
All right. Because even though most people do believe that red light cameras provide a bit of safety but are more of a money grab, the state is going to relinquish that pilot program at the end of the year. Ours may go on to May, and I have continuously asked about, what are you doing to prepare for this money not coming in? But if, as you have explained in the past, this is truly about safety, I have what I think is a good recommendation. And I did my homework. I went to a few different towns and spoke to some people in the other towns, some people on both sides of the aisle, as Burlington County and some around here, and even Philadelphia. But Philadelphia is a little different. Philadelphia has an actual stop wall. When you stop in Philly, Pennsylvania, you must stop for 3 seconds, whereas we have to come to a complete stop for no definitive period of time. But the biggest intersection that involves the red light cameras and all eyes are watching are Blackwood, Clementon, and Ariel, New Brooklyn Road. And that tends to bring in the most amount of fines by virtue of turning on red. Now that traffic light is in close proximity to a high school, and most of the towns that I visited and drove around in my daily day at work, there's a lot of no turn on reds at where school crossings, especially one that's only a couple hundred feet from a traffic signal. Why is that intersection with all the children that walk to that school, the high schoolers, why is that not turn on red? Why don't we just have that as a no turn on red intersection rather than determining who's going to come to the Philly stop, who's going to stop it all, and who's going to blow it? It takes out the fines, it takes out the violations, and it provides even more safety than a red light camera. I'd love your input on that.
That would be DOT.
Yeah. Chief, I think that in order to change that, what does that involve?
Well, it would require, certainly an engineer's review, but I think there's a lot more factors that would go into that, and I don't know the answers, but, you have Route 42, there's a connection there, and we'll call it backups on 42. There's a lot. Just to say you can't turn right on red anymore could have consequences far beyond that one traffic signal, which would require much more study, but just by looking at the intersection familiar with the traffic stacking on 42 already, and the risk of a high-speed rear end crash on 42 from traffic stacking, there's, stopping more traffic on 42 could be really create quite a problem. So all that has to be looked at. It's pretty complicated.
Given the time of day, and I know rush hour on 42 is what it is, but as we all know, there's a lot of people that still live in this township that will not turn on red for fear of not stopping long enough and getting that violation. But let's look at the fact that that's a high school with a great deal of high school pedestrian traffic, just walking, okay? And almost everywhere you go, when there is a red light traffic intersection that close to a school, just about 80%, maybe almost 90% of those intersections do not allow a turn on red because of the pedestrian traffic of the children. And I think it would solve two problems. The red light camera fines, the videos, it would knock out a great number of them. Because let's be honest, running a red light through an intersection is a whole lot more deadly than making a right turn on red. And it takes it completely out of the equation. No fines and a much safer environment for the children that walk to Highland High School. That's it. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Joanne?
Joanne Carr, Timber Birch. I have a question about a resolution that you passed tonight, and it's purely for my own education because I got up here the last time and asked about could there be a liquor license at the premium outlets, and you mentioned, there could be one in Pocket. And I saw that tonight that you did okay one. Can you explain that to me, what that means, the in Pocket, and do we get money from this every year when it gets is it purchased outright and that's the only money we get, or do we get money every year from liquor licenses?
You know, this is in-pocket means they don't have a location for the license, but it's owned privately by someone. It's not owned by the township. So under state law, you have to have a home for a liquor license 2 years, I believe. Within two years, otherwise you risk losing it unless council as well as the state authorizes a continuance of that license to be held in pocket, meaning without a house or establishment. And that's what this application was, if I understand it correct, to renew the license, even though it's beyond 2 years now, and state approved as well as once they did that, then the township approved. Correct.
Yeah. There's the possibility they may sell it for somebody in the premium outlets. Okay. But also, I truly don't understand how liquor licenses work. What does the township get from the liquor license? I mean, he got it renewed. Do we get any money for that? A $2,000 fee?
But the original, when we have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, it's based on population.
Correct.
And so there's X amount that are allowed to be sold by the government based on population. I believe we have one that we have consumption. And so we can then sell that, and we can sell that at any time. And then we usually put a starting bid on it, if you will.
Okay.
So at that point, then people can come and put a bid on it, seal bid, I believe.
Yes.
And then we take the highest one at that point, as long as they meet all legal and zoning and all the other, there's a lot of other requirements.
How many liquor licenses does Gloucester Township have, or are operating in the township?
Nancy, you know?
Yeah. 6 club, 18 restaurant, and 12 store distribution.
Okay, 36. So we get $72,000 a year renewal every year.
I don't know if they're all 2,000.
No, they're not all 2,000, just the consumption are.
Just the consumption are, so that would be the restaurants.
Bar restaurant.
Right.
What about the in-pocket?
But that's,
They-
well, that's, if that's
yeah.
the consumption, then it's 2,000.
Okay. So what ones are not included in that?
Club is not, right?
Club is 200.
Club's 200 to the state, 80 to us. Distribution is 1,200 to us. And consumption is 2,400 to us.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Pete?
Just behind Morning Star Court. Back on the gems for a little bit. Cash call 3 years ago. I really appreciate that you approved the bond issue, but then took the 8 months, whatever it was, to carefully review what they were at, exactly what they were asking for before releasing the money. I think that was a good idea. And that's more or less what we're doing this time, except a little more proactive. Mr. Hutchinson's characterization of this 3 years ago, he seemed to disagree with, he voted yes, but he seemed to have reservations about voting yes on the delay, because 3 years ago, we knew exactly where the intended use for that 1.2 million was. That was the intended use. That was the projected use. This is 3 years later. It's all gone. We don't care. We need to know more than what the projected use was 3 years ago. We want to know where it went over the last 3 years, where it actually went, not all the good work we did 3 years ago to get an accurate projection of where we think it's going to go. So I disagree with even why Mr. Hutchinson had reservations about. I think he mischaracterizes what we're concerned about when he had his reservations. Different topic. The Public Works Director position, where are we with filling that?
We have not conducted interviews yet. We have a number of candidates that have the Public Works Manager's certificate, so we will be looking to schedule some interviews shortly.
So we're still employing this temporary Public Works Director from Jersey Professional Management. That's continuing. Does this gentleman, is this a gentleman, I'm made that presumption, shouldn't have, does he show up on site?
Does.
It's not a online or virtual office type thing?
He works 21 hours.
He comes here
He does.
personally, okay. So that's going to continue until?
So we fill the position.
A question I have, when we do have a full-time public works director hired and in position, and that individual would go on vacation, or in the case that happened, becomes suspended from employment for a period of time, which happened a couple years ago, what is done during that period of time to backfill?
Supervisors, Pete, and they take, in essence, control. I mean, they're running the workforce anyway, so they would continue. Tom, if you have anything different.
Right now, I function as a public works director.
Right now?
Yes, the gentleman is away on vacation. It's interesting you bring that up, but he's away on vacation.
So over the last several months, why couldn't we written a pretty tight procedure on dealing with the position of public works director in the absence of the director himself, like you're doing now, like we do when the real public work director is on vacation in other instances? Why couldn't we just extended that procedure?
But that's the mayor's decision, and the mayor felt that he needed somebody down there. That's why.
For 20 hours a week, who doesn't know the town any better than?
He's a certified public works manager. He has many years of experience. He formerly was an engineer, and he's done this quite often.
Okay. Another topic now, and this is just an observation I made while I was sitting there. During this meeting, the names of 5 different vendors just happened to come up during the course of conversation in the meeting. Remington and Vernick, for obvious reasons. Acacia Financial, Parker McKay, Archer and Griner, because the name just came up, and ATS. Those are just in the course of the meeting, those came up. 4 of those vendors contribute great amounts to campaigns, great amounts to political action committees that are directly connected. Whether it's legal or not, illegal connection or not, but in essence, directly connected to Team Mayor's election committees over the years. 4 of these contribute heavily to campaigns like that and to committees like that. 1 very, very heavily. And all 4 of those are no-bid vendor selections at the beginning of every year and have been for a number of years. So just pointing that observation out. For someone like me who pays attention, tries to pay attention, tries to keep track of what's going on, that's just an observation I made. And the 5th one, American Traffic Solutions, I don't know offhand if they contributed, but I bet I'm going to look. I bet if I dig enough, they've made contributions somewhere along the line to some campaigns in New Jersey, maybe more at the state level, but just an observation and a reason why it's sort of natural for someone who pays attention and wants to understand and wants every dollar to be spent right and wants justice for all 65,000 residents, why it can be a little uncomfortable. That's just an observation. That's it.
Anyone else? Seeing no other hands, we'll close the second public portion. Polling of directors and council, please.
Mr. Lechner?
I have nothing to report, thank you.
Mr. Earl?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Parliament?
Nothing to report.
Cardis?
Nothing to report.
Campbell?
Nothing to report.
Cook?
Yeah, I'm listening to everything tonight, and I'd like to see audited statements from the gems. And I guess that's a question. Mr. Carts, do they have audited financials?
I don't want to give you an answer because I really don't know. I would assume that they have to have some type of audit. I have not seen an audit.
I mean, as much as I recollect, the holding off of payment to the GEMS trustees, I don't recollect, and it's been quite some time, exactly what happened, other than the fact that I remember that we were threatened, for lack of a better way of putting it, with non-payment. What would the repercussions be? So I want to be clear that I don't specifically recollect what information we received. Okay, I know that we did what we did. And Pete, just to be clear, my lack of addressing that at the time is really why I don't think it's appropriate to withhold at this juncture the payment. If we have recourse for lack of their diligence, or if they spent the money inappropriately back then, we have recourse. I just think when we're given the information we're given at this juncture, we have an obligation. And I would want to be in a position of strength in going back at them. That's the point that I was trying to say, maybe not as articulately as I should have said it. But I would like to see audited financials if they do exist. Thank you very much for coming in.
Mr. Schmidt?
I want to thank everyone for coming out, and thank you for all of your comments. Have a good evening.
Mr. Seiler?
No comment.
Mrs. Strato?
Thank you and have a good week.
Mrs. Winters?
Thank you for coming out. Have a great week.
Mr. McConnell?
The township is accepting nominations for individuals that have made outstanding contributions to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. That nomination form's online, and we will be celebrating at our October 15th council meeting. It's a Wednesday this year due to Columbus Day on Monday. Thank you for coming out.
Mr. Piantini?
Yeah, I'd like to thank all the residents for attending tonight's meetings and wish you all a happy good night and have a great week. Motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Thank you.
What's your question?
I know. I think anybody.
Very good, thank you.